You're listening to the Empowered Divorce Podcast, where you practice being the chooser in your life again, one day at a time. Thanks for joining me. Hello, my amazing, beautiful listeners. Welcome, new listeners. I love seeing this community grow. It's been awesome to hear from you new followers as well lately. Speaking of community, I guess the link to the Women Supporting Women's Facebook group, that link wasn't working when I put the bonus episode out. It is working now in that bonus episode, but I will include that link again in this episode show notes as well. This Women Supporting Women private Facebook page, this group is for anyone who is trying to maybe start a business, a side gig, trying to earn some holiday money. Holidays are coming up quick. Even if it's local and not online that you're selling things, it's okay. Come and share. You never know who you might be reaching out to or who might be reaching out to you. I would love for those of you who might not have something to sell, just jump on and support those that do. Either way, women need women. Let's support each other in this community of you amazing women. I know holidays, oh my gosh, so close, coming up. Many of you are trying to do little things on the side to give your kids a great Christmas. So many of my housekeeping clients at the time give so generously, and I felt so supported and seen. That's what I'd love to help facilitate for you. So join and share your offering, your support. I would love to see all of you come together and really make beautiful things happen in this group of support. And even outside of the holiday season, join the group and other ways that you can support each other in a positive way. I want to encourage just women coming together who have a very unique, shared, similar life-saving divorce story. I think that it can be really challenging when you feel like you're in the wrong aisle of the grocery store, so to speak, on divorce. Like you went to the aisle that said divorce, but you're walking around and you're like, this doesn't really have some of the things that I feel like I need going through divorce, until you find the other aisle that says life-saving divorce. And you're going to find more things on the shelf that other people on different aisles might not resonate with. And it can feel a lot less crazy when you know that the divorce that you are having is different. There are missing pieces that you might not have received on the other aisle. I know, silly analogy, but that's what's coming to my mind. So let's support each other as women. That's one of the reasons why I even created this podcast, and why my entire first, I don't even know, 2 seasons was all about sharing other women's stories so that you did not feel alone. I am also happy to share your business that you post in that group on my podcast. I don't have to. If that freaks you out and scares you, we can just keep that in the Women Supporting Women Facebook group. But let's rally together, because support is part of the magic sauce, so to speak, for healing. I also wanted to share real quick that Dating from Within workshop will be held again at the end of January. So if you have a New Year's resolution to date yourself and start dating yourself next year and really start that journey back towards you, finding healthy you, creating healthy you, and possibly start exploring, considering dating other people again, then this is for you. 3 evenings with me, tons of information, all recorded, workbook included, live Q&A with Scott, ask a guy anything, so much more. Join me, get your spot. That registration link will be in the show notes or amiewoolsey.com. Then lastly, the next free live session with me, the Q&A, is November 7th at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. So come, even if you came once a while ago, it's okay to come back. I'm not judging you. There is no expectations from me here at all, except to show up and feel seen, heard, maybe learn a little something, ask some questions. I do like teaching something right at the very beginning of that session. Sometimes I try to teach a principle or a concept or validate something. I know not everyone is or can get professional support right now. And so I try to offer this and give you something each month to look forward to and help encourage you and let you know that you are not alone and you are seen. If you have already registered, you'll get a reminder. If you have not registered, go to amiewoolsey.com, go to the show notes, and it's free registration. Okay. Today, I'm going to talk about something that comes up a lot, especially in high conflict divorces and life-saving divorces where there has been betrayal, reality fragmentation, no closure, where there's been an escalation in destructive behaviors from your ex or soon to be ex. I see this way too often. And that's when kids get a different story from the other parents about the divorce, about you, about the facts and reality of how everything went down. And then what the heck do you do with that? Right? Do you tell the kids the truth and all of the truth? Will that confuse them more? Does that pit the kids against you and the other parent? Is that so bad? All of the things, right? And all of the feels on this one for sure. And gosh dang, this is so maddening. It is so maddening and can really make the anger and the rage stir up all over again when the kids come home and say things like, "So, why did you leave dad when he was trying so hard to save the marriage?" Or, "Dad didn't want the divorce. So, why did you divorce?" Things like, "Dad says that he loved you and still loves you, wants nothing but the best for you. So, why are you so mad at him?" I know that I'm genderizing a little bit, so forgive me on that, but I have seen this with my 2 mom couples as well. The other parent is creating a false story, a false narrative, and confusing the truth, confusing the children. Then this comes back at you, and it's really frustrating when the other parent goes so far as to deny affairs and addictions and their behaviors that led to the demise. And what makes it, I think, often trickier too in this is that during the reality fragmentation, when you're still trying to make sense of your reality, and many of you have, like, during that time, during that space of cognitive dissonance, during that time of a lot of threats and intimidation, you've reacted in ways where possibly you acted outside your value system. Reactive abuse is real. And so that reactivity can be used against you as if you were the abuser or aggressor. I see this a lot with covert abuse and the nice narcissist. The abuser will threaten and intimidate, push, 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 knowing how to get you to that level 10. And then you explode. And then they sit back and watch the quote show, so to speak, while you are looking like a crazy person and they look like the calm, innocent one. If that gets witnessed by children, it's really hard to explain covert abuse. It's hard to understand it. Many of you are still trying to grapple with the reality of that. So it's hard to understand yourself, but then try to explain that to kids can be really challenging. It's hard to explain to kids that you were reacting, even if you feel bad about it, even if you were reacting to the lies, the deception, the manipulation, blame shifting, gaslighting, and all other forms of abusive communication, threats, and intimidation. It's hard to explain. Should you explain? How do you explain? Is that even going to be helpful? I really want to validate those experiences if that resonates with you and how hard this is to navigate. So you might do what I did at one time and have to stay silent, feeling like you have to stay silent, and then painfully listen to your kids grapple with more lies that they're being told, watching them feel similar confusion to their own reality is horrible. I did change course after a few years. I had a really great therapist walk me through some things that really helped me shift and helped empower my children. So I want to share some of those thoughts with you today. And if this is resonating, and even if your situation is, well, what if my kids ask me what really happened? Just what do I tell them? I think this episode can be really helpful. The first thing I want to do is empower you and make it a priority, as I'm sure you are, but make it a priority to protect your children's emotional well-being. This is something that you, as the one that has more of that emotional maturity, this is what you can gift your children. And I really want to encourage you to make this number one priority. So if you bring all of these challenges and struggles and the specific nuances to your situation, bring it to your professional to help walk through some more of the specificities that I might not be able to cover today. One of the hard truths that I will say most everyone listening needs to, at some point, radically accept is that you will not be able to control the narrative that your ex is telling the kids. And let's just pause for all the 4-letter words with that one, right? Like, I know. It's so sucky that you can't control what they tell the kids. You can't control their story. You can't control their narrative, their perception, their reality. Remember, the reason why you're experiencing the different aisle of the grocery store, so to speak, is that you were living in a false reality in your relationship because they were creating that for you. And so they're going to continue to live in that. The idea that divorce somehow creates a shared story, a similar story, is wishful thinking that they are all of a sudden going to have a shift in their reality when they were expert at deflecting and lying and gaslighting and creating this false reality. So of course, they're going to keep living in it. Of course, they're going to continue to give your children a false reality. We have to focus on what we can control. And in this situation, that's not even really what you tell your kids to be honest. I'll get there in a little bit of like things that maybe you can share, but really how you live your life, your behavior, your life, your integrity, your values, and how you align with those speaks louder than words. I promise. You're in this for the long game. You are you are in this for the long game. You are their parent and will always be your children's parent, no matter what. I know that a lot of you have very unique, specific situations where you might have children turning against you right now and truly believing the other parent's story. And all of my empathy goes out to those of you who are in this situation. And in no way am I trying to minimize the pain if that is your story right now. And this radical acceptance around the fact that you can't control that right now doesn't mean you have to feel good about it. It doesn't mean you have to approve what's happening. But when we are focusing so much on trying to change that narrative and get our children to believe us, you are going to get stuck and it is going to end up biting you in the arse. It really will. I've been there. So, what I want to encourage you to do, first and foremost, is lean into that radical acceptance. I know that takes intentionality. I know not everyone is ready for that, and I just validate that too. You will know when you're ready because the pain, the cycle, the stuckness, the misery, the distance, the banging your head against the wall, like it'll just get to a point where like I can't keep doing this anymore. I have to live my life. I have to get me back. And you'll know when you're ready. When you are, then that's the step. It's taking that step towards radically accepting that you cannot control the narrative that the other parent is telling. Trying to get in a battle of words, a battle of stories, a battle of perceptions, a battle of truth is not going to be helpful. It will get you nowhere. So focusing on your life is not ignoring your children. It's not selfish. It is how you set the record straight, living your life in integrity, living your life according to your values. Many of you are beginning in the beginning stages, maybe the middle stages of divorce. Even if you're on the other side, you're in this for the long game. You have to widen your scope here. So many times when we're going through trauma, we're in the thick of the hell of it. It's really easy to feel like we have these blinders on each side of our eyes, and it's really hard to see what's on the other side of those two blinders. We're really hyper focused on what's right in front of us. That's survival, right? That's your survival mode. Totally get that. It's not bad. We need to start shifting if we can, taking those blinders off, widening our scope a little bit, looking further down the road as the parent that has more of that emotional maturity, the parent that needs to be the one that is consistent and stable and emotionally regulated. You're not going to do that by trying to change the narrative of the other parent. You're not going to do that by trying to correct the perception that the kids are getting from the other parent right now. And so patience is the long game. Truth always, y'all, truth always, always, always comes out one way or another. It's usually in the lifestyle, the fruit of the tree, so to speak, right? If you are taking care of your roots, if you are nourishing you, your space, your energy, if you are sinking your roots into that soil that is filled with your values, your integrity, your goodness, your truth, your honesty, if you are consistently pruning and watering and giving sunlight to your soul, you will produce fruit that is sweet. It will show. It will show in your eyes, in your countenance, in your body language, in your actions, in the way that you choose to live your life, in the way that you carry yourself. It resonates. It matters. It's noticeable. It is tangible. It really, truly is. This is what you can control. This is what speaks louder than any words that you can counter or correct when your children come back spouting off all of these lies that are coming from the other parent. This is the daily tending and nurturing that you have control over. It's really tempting to want to correct all of the lies. And I'm not saying you don't. And I'm going to talk about that more. So hear me out. I'm not saying you don't correct lies, but there's a strategy here that I want to offer. Again, first. We want to create that stability in your own life, maintain that consistency. It goes a long, long way. I remember hugging my therapist when she told me not to lie to my kids. I did. Because I felt like I was living a lie in so many ways, I did. I lived a lie. I covered his lies. I lied for him. I believed his lies. All the things, right? So just a whole life of lies. And so it felt awful and so very painful to let my children believe his lies. But I was conflicted because I didn't want to get in that tit for tat. I didn't want to confuse them. I know because my kids told me one of the things mine specifically really struggled with was just that. They were getting two different stories. And so they felt very stuck and pulled between mom and dad. They didn't know who to believe. I saw the anguish and I saw the pain. It was awful watching my kids in their own cognitive dissonance, trying to figure out who was telling the truth. It was infuriating to try and stay silent about that. I didn't want to. I did it all. I went through a period of time where I was like, countering everything and that's bull crap. And no, that's not what happened. And let me tell you what really happened. And then I went through a period of just staying silent and that just about killed me. And so I validate all of those different ways of trying to handle this. It can be really painful. So I'm just telling you, you don't have to lie to your kids and you don't need to tell them everything either. So here are a few things to consider as you are navigating this. I want to be very careful not to tell you exactly what to do. That's not, except I'm going to say, don't lie to them. I will say that. In reality, the reason why I am going to just come out and say, don't lie to your kids, same reason why my therapist told me this, because when you are divorcing because of lies, reality fragmentation, your kids are having the same experience. Okay. So meaning they're having reality fragmentation. So you don't want to add to that. But outside of that, I'm not going to tell you what to do, A, B, C, D. That's not my job. I do want to share some principles that I think would be really helpful. And then look, you're the moms. And I really want to empower you to go inside your big, beautiful, amazing mama hearts because you know your children better than anybody. You know your children better than anybody. And I want you to trust that. When it's so hard right now to trust anything, I want you to trust that you know your children. Trust that the love and care and worry and concern that you have for your children is valid. And most of you are truly concerned for your children and truly have their best interest. You are truly not trying to exploit them and weaponize them, pit them against the other parent. You are trying to do what's best for them. You are trying to give them stability and truth. You are trying to help them. I want you to trust your goodness and your intentions here. You are not going to do it all perfect, nor should you. So give yourself some grace and space to be clunky with a lot of this. But trust that your intentions are pure and real, that you know your children. So when I share these principles, go inside your big, beautiful mama hearts, listen to what your heart says. I might share something and your brain, your mama heart, your gut are going to maybe take you in a direction. Hit pause and follow it. Follow that intuition specifically around your children, and which is the other thing that I want to just also mention is that each one of your children, if you have multiple, try to not lump them all together either in how you approach this. They're all at different ages. They're all at different stages. I've mentioned this before in previous episodes. They're all internalizing things differently. They all have different attachment styles. They all have different needs. They are all grappling with the reality fragmentation differently. They've all seen things, different things in the relationship between you and your partner. And so keep that in mind that you are going to approach this issue very likely differently with each of your children. So keeping that in mind also, it's not usually a one size fits all. Oldest children are usually born with those satellite dishes for ears. They just hear things. They hear more. They pick up on more. I swear it's like they can be in the next room and those dishes will just go beep, 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 beep. They just pick up on things. They're like, how did you hear that? How did you know that? So, you have some middle children that just block everything out. So they're all going to be different. We have with my set of kids and Scott's set of kids, it's really interesting to hear each of them talk, and you'll have some that pick up on all the little things. Then you have some that are like, huh? What? Huh? So I didn't know what's going on. They're, oblivious. Keep that in mind. I think that can be really helpful because sometimes we will lump them all together, assuming that they are all believing or that they're all confused or that they're all struggling. And you want to meet each child where they are at. Again, going back to what I mentioned before, that one of the first things you can do is maintain that consistency and stability, emotional stability, the stability in your rules at the home, the routine of the home, the environment, especially when the other partner is bringing in a lot of that chaos. So discipline, you might be the one that is disciplining, the one that's reminding them to do chores, all of those things. It really does provide that sense of security. Children need to feel that safety and security and stability above anything right now. When you can provide that, it allows them to process their reality fragmentation, their cognitive dissonance. It allows them to start to have a space where they can connect to their body, connect to their feelings, and start processing in their own way. The other thing to consider is encouraging open communication. Again, creating that safe space for your children to express their feelings and their thoughts about the divorce. Really trying to let them have that space to share without your input, without your 2 cents, without your story. It's very much asking questions and allowing them space to feel even negative emotions about you. I think one of the biggest gifts that we can give our children is to hold space for them to be frustrated and angry and confused with us, and not shutting them out and silencing them and correcting them and doing a lot of the same behaviors that they're getting from the other parent when they don't agree or see our perspective. If we can validate, yeah, that might be really confusing. Yeah, I can see why you would think that about me. How does that feel? I'm really sorry. It's okay to be mad. I get that. What a gift you're going to give your children to have that open communication with you. When they feel safe to share, at one point they will be safe. They will feel safe to sincerely ask questions, be ready to hear the truth. The other thing that you can do is avoid contradicting the other parent blatantly. This is where it can get tricky because, again, like I said, I went through this stage and it was not helpful. I think timing matters, meaning timing of where you're at in the divorce process matters. I think each child and their personal experience matters when you're navigating this. But when children come to you with the stories or comments from the other parent, they're misleading, they're untrue. It's, again, really natural to want to set the record straight and correct that narrative. When we directly contradict the other parent, it can increase that child's confusion and their distress. So we want to provide a different perspective without dismissing the other parent's views outright, trashing the other parent. So it can look like, yeah, how does this look like, Amie? So, like, for example, well, that's interesting that dad sees it that way. Here's another way to look at it. Or I understand that dad has or mom has their views, but here's what I've experienced, or here's my perspective. Personally, I think it can be helpful before sharing your perspective to get a buy-in or permission, meaning here's what that might sound like. I understand that dad has his views and his perspective of the experience of the divorce. If you're open to hearing mine, I'm happy to share that with you. It's okay if you're not ready for that either. Personally, I like that one. I think sometimes we assume our kids want to hear our perspective when they share the other parent's perspective. And I think that's sometimes when when the kids feel caught in the middle. I definitely know that's what contributed to my children's experience. And I've seen that happen a lot of times with clients as well. I am a big proponent of honoring children's agency in this time where they need to be able to choose whether or not they're ready to hear your truth. I think, going back to what I said earlier, I think one of the best things you can give them is living your life in a way where they can see the fruit that your life is producing, and allowing them to explore and listen to their own body and formulate their own perspective, I think is probably one of the biggest and most powerful gifts that you can give your children. That requires you to be in it for the long game. It requires patience. It requires radical acceptance. It requires letting go of control. It requires allowing your children to think things about you that aren't true for a time. That's really hard. That's the higher road for sure, right? It kind of reminds me of the story, the old Bible story where the two women are claiming to be the mother over the child, and they're fighting over this child. And the king says, well, let's just cut the child in half. The real mother says, no, 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 no. You go ahead, take him, right? It's that this is so painful. And I feel like I'm losing my child over this, but I know that I am my child's mother. I will always be their mother. And so I'm in it for the long haul, and I'm going to take the higher road. That is incredibly noble and incredibly painful. So I don't minimize any of that. This is a long game, y'all. It really is. And if you can, and this leads me to the next thing, if you can empower your children to be critical thinkers and develop those skills, you're giving them an extra gift in their life. Not just to navigate this divorce, but to navigate this with other humans that they will encounter that are very similar to your ex. They're going to come across other people like the other parent that are manipulative, that are narcissistic, that are confusing, that shift the reality. So if you can help them be their own critical thinkers, you're giving them a gift. So you can ask them open-ended questions, right? Prompting them to reflect on their own thoughts and feelings. How did that make you feel when you heard that? What is your perspective? What do you know about that? What do you think about that? This approach can really help them develop their own perspective, even if it's, again, not yours and feels like it's off in far left lane. You're teaching them to think for themselves. And again, going back to what I was saying earlier, when you focus on what you can control and produce your good fruit, they will see it. They will see it because you've taught them and given them the gift to trust themselves and their body. They will see truth. The next thing that you can do is reinforce their reality. So again, they might feel very torn between two different narratives right now. Validate their feelings, their experiences by reinforcing what they know to be true from those experiences. This, again, really helps them to be able to trust their own perceptions and their feelings, helping them to ground in their own truth. Their truth and their perspective will change as they continue to think for themselves and learn to recognize reality for themselves. Any of us humans, like how we recognize reality is being present in our bodies. Encouraging your children to pay attention to their body, how their body feels, what those emotions are, what they're thinking brings them to the present moment. It helps them see things as they really are. And that is a gift that you can give them. The other thing is modeling emotional intelligence because they're probably not going to get it from the other partner. So demonstrate to them how to manage emotions and conflicts in a mature and composed way. This doesn't mean that you have to stay composed all the time. Do it in front of your children and then go in your closet and punch the hell out of something. Like call your support person, call your professional and have a rage fest, burn say, like you can have all of the feels. You really want to show your children as best as you can how to manage those emotions and those conflicts in a mature way. Because when they're in that cognitive dissonance space where they see and feel mom showing up one way because you're creating a safe space and dad is feeding the narrative and confusing the children by saying all of these lies about you, they are going to experience that cognitive dissonance. And watching that happen is painful. I mean, just that word doesn't even cover it. And as you are in your home teaching them emotional regulation, emotional awareness, emotional intelligence, they will be able to learn how to manage their emotions in that cognitive dissonance space. They will be able to trust their body because you're teaching them how to connect to their body. You're teaching them how to look at themselves. That is healthy independence. You're really giving them a gift when you can model that, when you can guide them to that themselves. I'm going to go back to what I was saying earlier. This is where it can be really tricky. So trust your mama heart, your intuition, and what you know about your children. I do think in a lot of cases, especially when abuse is happening, my personal opinion is that calling out and clarifying abusive behaviors is really important, especially if that's coming from the other parent. There is a way to do that where we are not rashing the other parent. And if you are in the middle of a divorce or navigating it, you've really got to be careful in this area because unfortunately, the way the court system is, this can be used against you and it's not right. And it's all of the four-letter words, but I want to give a big disclaimer to this. So that's why it's really, really tricky to talk publicly about it. I feel like one of the ways that I felt like I could stay true to myself and my children is when they feel confused and when I'm asking them questions, when I'm getting curious about their experience, I can point out destructive behavior and explain that without saying your dad just manipulated you or your other parent just gaslit you and that's wrong and that's messed up and F that. We can still teach the principle. We can still call out behavior and do so in a way that doesn't, again, especially those of you who are still in that divorce process, to protect yourself. In all honesty, you still have to protect yourself. There's still a little fine line there that I think even after divorce is filed, we still have to mitigate. Me personally, I wanted my kids to be aware of abusive behavior, abusive communication, asking them, well, how did that feel? What was your experience when you were told that or when you received that message? Yeah, that makes sense. You can do that by focusing on the behavior, not the other parent. Sometimes people say things that aren't true, which can be very hurtful or confusing. That would be an example of focusing on behavior and not the other parent, rather than your dad's a liar, your parent's a liar, right? Using age appropriate language here. This is going back to recognizing the age of your children, their level of understanding. So for younger children, it might be like, it's not nice to yell at people or say mean things. It can really make us feel sad or scared, can't it? Right? For older children, you can provide a little bit more context about emotional abuse or manipulation, explaining how these behaviors impact relationships. When you can focus on healthy relationships, right? Explaining what a healthy relationship would look like. So you can contrast these examples of unhealthy behaviors like yelling or name calling or lying, and explain how, these hurt people emotionally. When we show up that way in a healthy relationship, mutual respect and kindness and trust, and you can explain what healthy looks like to your kids and emulate that. Sometimes I'd ask my kids, well, what did that feel like? And they would describe what it felt like. And they're describing gaslighting, they're describing manipulation. And so I would say things like, well, what you're describing sounds like manipulation. What do you think about that? You can give them a language, right? I mean, I had to learn the language of abuse. I didn't have that language to describe my experience. For years, it was like, I just feel freaking crazy, right? And then I learned, oh, gaslighting. So you're teaching them a language, but you can do so by, again, focusing on the behavior and not the other person. You can teach your children to pay attention to body language, pay attention to nonverbals from other people. My children became really, really, cued in on body language. And so they would say things like, he never looks me in the eyes, or he's always on his phone, never looking up at me. They would pay attention to the body language and the nonverbal cues that really helped them to discern for themselves healthy versus unhealthy, destructive versus non-destructive. So you can teach your kids all of these different skills to help them, not just with the other parent, but in life in general, as they're going to be navigating this with, fortunately, other humans that are walking around very emotionally immature. So you can really give them a gift here. The last thing that I'll just lead with is empowering your children with choices. Give them choices and the power to make decisions in their own lives. Help them to understand their rights. Help them to feel the right to feel and think the way that they want to think, even if that is that they are thinking things about you that isn't true. Allowing them to navigate that in their own time, allowing them to figure that out in their own journey and in their own time can be really, really painful. But one of the best gifts that you can give them as you continue to show up in love, as you continue to support them, as you continue to validate their experience, not try to control their narrative and their experience. You will be setting that example and that standard of healthy. When your kids come home with a different story that's being told about the truth of your relationship, the truth of your divorce, the truth about you, I want to encourage you to not make it mean anything about you. Try not to adopt this as your story or the energy of it. Remember your truth. Hold on to your truth and trust that your children, as they watch you live your life, create your life, and do so in alignment with healthy values, with integrity, and with living in your truth, they will see it. They will see the fruit of your labor. You are in it for the long game because you will always be there for your children, even when they don't want you to be. You will continue to show them love and support and understanding as they navigate their own journey and their own healing around the story of their parents. They need to have the freedom and the space to create their own story. You can give them the gift to do that. And you can do that by being the chooser in your life and creating the life that you want, because you absolutely can. Take care, everybody.
I was born to fly and spread these wings and find my own was made to dream that anything can be my own. I have found my home. Today will be the day it all will change. Nothing, no one's in my way. Today will be the day.